Okay, so guys, welcome again this evening for this session. XE files, we are on to episode 2, so we are building up slowly. We had the initiation in the first episode, and we get into thermaling today. So, warm welcome everyone, and also those who are watching us on YouTube Live. And I'm very happy to see familiar faces. And I hope it's going to be an exciting session today. So, like I mentioned, in the brief as well, we don't want it to be a tutoring session or a teaching session. There's enough and more material available on thermaling, on so many forums. There are articles, there are YouTube videos, there are books, and there are courses available. This we want to make a special gathering where what you actually face, and if you can pull out from us who are experienced and who've been thermaling for a bit. So Sach and me, we put a kind of a presentation together, a PowerPoint presentation, just to initiate the topics and talk of a few things that can invite your curiosity and encourage you to ask what you need to kind of clarify. So here we are. Okay, beautiful scenery there. We all want to be there. Okay, here are a few short videos we are using, giving credits to people. These are videos from YouTube, which will help us to understand some concepts. We'll start with a short video. It's a very familiar place, just to warm up. Okay. So there's 2 pilots in a thermal. There's a bird as well. And you can see this is from Beer. So that's Satch on the links. And I think Rambo on the New York wing. Okay, so these are basically going to be the highlights of what we will talk about a bit. Wow factors, a good way to start. Then we'll just briefly discuss thermals and types. We'll talk about different techniques. We'll share the exercises that can help you get better. Common mistakes can be really interesting. Thermal traps, risks and danger, weather, and then preparation. So yeah, so yeah, I mean, just like any other sport, like football or basketball, it's not so much fun in the beginning when you see others, dribbling the ball or shooting in the net, and getting those shots, and you're like kind of struggling and not really getting it. But once you start to get the knack of things, and the same in thermal flying. Once you start to get the knack of thermal flying, you start to get the thrill of it. Just beautifully circling in a nice thermal, hooked in a wonderful climb, and as you climb, the sensation of going up and up, the scenery changing, the perspective changing, and you're feeling on top of the world. And then maybe a bird or two joins you, and you're in perfect kind of formation with that bird, and maybe a few birds, and you feel kind of also part of something bigger, and you feel accepted by another set of beings. It's amazing. I mean, all pilots can share their wow moments while thermaling. Being on top of the gaggle, for example, and there'll be many more. So maybe we can quickly one-liners we can share, like your wow moments of thermal flying from people who've been flying. So can we go around a little bit, Sach? If you can remove the slide.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, quickly, like people who thermal just can share a moment, like Rohit, we can start with you. Just a quick, two-liner, like wow, that was wow. Yeah.
Two-liners is not my cup of tea, really. But I can just say that it's the ultimate puzzle for me, which excites me. Every thermal is so different, and when you actually understand it, it's invisible. You have to, figure it out. And as I said, the problem-solving part of me really comes together in understanding what the day's thermals look like, how it's all shaping up, and when then you can start expecting what's going to happen in the next thermal. And when you hit it right on the nail, like a bingo, you got it absolutely right here now. So that's just fun part. I'll try to keep it short.
Wow. Somebody else wants to share a wow moment while thermaling?
So I would like to share, Avi.
Yeah.
So you always, whenever you talk about thermaling and in general about flying, you say that okay, it's like being an artist, and I could never personally relate myself to an artist. Like when I look at Ritu Ma'am's portraits and stuff, and even like I can't like really draw a curve. So I always felt like that. But then when I look at my diorama tracks, I feel like okay, now this is a very good turn. So this is a good feeling actually.
Okay, great. Somebody else wants to share a little, wow moment while thermaling? Yes.
For me, I think, especially in calm shade, when there is a wind blowing and your circles are not proper circle, but elliptical one where you are facing and you're slowing down. When you're turning, you're going fast behind and then again turning and slowing down. Once you get hooked onto that and you know exactly how you're drifting and you get that continuous beep, for me that is a wow, because then I know that I'm in sync with the air. It's just not a normal circle, but it's the slowing and fast turn and then going back, and you're in proper sync in that particular center of it, and then you're slowly rising, and then and as you get better at every turn, your lift goes increasing faster and faster, and you know you got it. So for me, that was the first time for me that was like really, it was very nice.
Okay, cool. So enough and more wow moments when you start to get some successes. That's what we wanted to start with. Then talking about uh, glider planes and hang gliders. So it's not thermaling has not just started with paragliding. There've been hang gliders who've been thermaling for a long time, and even before that, the sailplanes they do exactly the same thing. And for 1,000 years, birds have been, soaring much before us. Uh, I remember, like, first time I got into an aircraft was in a sailplane when I was a teenager in the Defense Academy, and it was like, wow, planes can fly without machines. That's too cool. And compared to like paragliders, sailplanes have a glide ratio, like for example, from 60 to 70 is to 1. So imagine, like, they can really travel. And hang gliders will have a glide ratio around, 16. We have like top, like, 10 or something. So big kind of differences there. In terms of like, distance records, sailplanes, can you guess like how much? Well, the world record for sailplanes is 3,008 kilometers. And altitude like 50,000 feet, and hang gliders record is like 764 kilometers and altitude of like 38,000 feet. So but evolution has kind of moved towards slower flying, safer flying, and that's why you see a lot of sailplane pilots and also hang glider pilots shifted to paragliding because it's slower and safer and portable. And but when you fly in Europe, for example, I have experienced like you see a sharing a thermal with a sailplane, sharing, thermals with hang gliders, and it's a pretty common sight. Not so much in India. So just to share with you that there are sailplanes and hang gliders doing the same thing in the sky as us. Next point was about thermaling as a doorway to XC flying. And now again, we can talk a lot about the wow factors of XC flying. I think it's the most challenging and the most rewarding activity that I have come across, because there's you're challenged as a sports person. You are challenged to know your stuff in terms of fluid dynamics, weather, and you need to have the skills, and you're rewarded with amazing spectacular views of valleys and mountains around the world. So I mean, if you're a paragliding pilot, you want to go XC flying, and it kind of become a lifestyle. Your life starts to revolve around being able to fly around the world in exotic destinations, and it's the most beautiful way of living, I would say. So paragliding world record, yeah, like some different pilots have different highs. Some people like setting records, for example. Once you've gained the skills, so for paragliding is 564 kilometers, and if you see in the videos of these guys who set these records, it's quite looks quite desperate. They are waiting there early in the morning when the winds are like 35-40 kilometers per hour, and they are somehow pulling the glider up just to get airborne on that winch, just to set this record. But it's a high for some people, some pilots, and they kind of push the boundaries and show in the world of our sport that what is possible. And some people find their wow factor in just doing cross country flying. Some people find their wow factor by competing with others, and it's like different for different people. Another factor like is low saves. I can think of two that easily pop up in my mind. One was maybe I think 10-12 years back, I was at the Red Temple in Bir, and I was trying to scratch there. There was nothing, and I started to glide out, and then start looking for a landing somewhere, desperate to find a kind of a landing somewhere. Okay, then I find a little patch to land, and that's okay. Time to get out of the harness, and then you hear a little pip. Oh, there's something here. Pivot, 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 and I start a turn. I hook in a tight turn. It's a tight one, and pa 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 pa. I go to cloud base. So a memory like that, it happened like 10, 15 years back. But whoa, that low save, it makes a very special memory. Second one that quickly comes to my mind also is also again in Bir. I was at the train station area on the east side of the ridge, and it was really weak. There were 2-3 houses, and I was like just spending time there. It was so weak, from 0 to -2, like little bit. And I see this woman, she's come out, she's washing some clothes, and I'm scratching, and then she's drying the clothes, and then some children come back from the school, and like I'm still struggling, and I know good like time there, like kind of forever, but it was a testing time. And then like okay, she's now preparing for the evening stuff, whatever, and then somehow something comes, and you go up, and whoa, like so every pilot doing XC flying will share like millions of amazing moments which only come
Hey, Avi,
from
can I
yeah.
just add quick something here?
Yeah, please.
So one of my inspirational moment was early days, about 2012. Avi was doing a course, and I was also flying in Bir. And that day, Avi showed a video of him doing a mistake and landing himself in unlandable valley. He got in a dead zone, in a +1 dead zone, which is there's absolutely no wind, there is no valley wind, there is no thermal, there's nothing. And now he finds himself there. And I saw that video where he was struggling for about 15-20 minutes, getting that little possible scrap and eventually converting into a thermal and getting out of it. That's something impressed me so much in my mind. Now today I have done more patient one, like 45 minutes, getting stuck low early day and still trying to come out. But things like this can be very much in your brain ingrained, and that's the beauty, I would say, of this thermaling and getting out. So, that was a great moment and a learning, Avi, from that video.
Yeah, I remember this one. I was shooting bricks for some time there. But yeah, quick one again, like I was there again in another situation where like, it was all forest, it was a valley. And I was like, you get these moments, you're like, fuck, shit, something, please, kind of situation. And then a bird dives and it starts to circle and I immediately go there because, you hang on to any straw, that may be thrown at you. And, this bird had no business to come there, but it kind of just came there, showed me the way, climbed with me, took me out of that situation. And like, my God, no words exchanged, but, life saving. So, like it's endless. And, probably this is why we fly. And it's a very personal sport. You will get your moments, those wow moments, those golden moments where, it could have been either way and you live to tell the tale. So nothing more romantic, adventurous than, paragliding and flying. And when you can't, you talk about it. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. Okay, we go to the next slide. Okay, so is this a video or a picture?
Video, Avi.
Okay, let's play. So, we see lovely diagrams in the books, about thermals. We can visually see something here. So this is kind of giving us an idea what's actually happening. The air is spinning like this. This is, okay, can we see this again? So this is a model kind of, the air, getting pulled from the sides. And it's kind of, turning like this and rising. And it's a good kind of, gives you an idea of, what's happening because we can't see these thermals. Second one, it will help us, when we talk about what we're going to talk next. So I also want for you to get this idea like of a fountain where, something is rising from the center like a fountain, a funnel, and then, it's kind of falling from the outside. You can see the downdraft from the sides. Okay. This is quite a big mother, but it'll give us a fair idea of what happens inside the thermal. You can see different cores, one on the left dominating, then the other one comes to dominate, and maybe there are two cores inside, and it's getting, tilted a bit towards our side, and there are more spikes coming from below, and that's a visible thermal. That's what's kind of happening inside. A little exaggerated in this particular cloud. And see what's happening on the edges. Okay, see the mushrooming effect. Okay. Cool. So fine, who can tell us quickly what are thermals? We'll just touch upon these points so we get everybody together, everyone who's participating here. So somebody can answer this. What are thermals?
Yeah, I can, Avi.
Yes, please.
So basically, thermals are it's like a hot air bubble. So since warm air has lower density, it tends to rise up above the colder air. So you can have thermal forming in any terrain really, wherever there's a difference in temperature. So any particular patch of ground which absorbs more heat, the air above that starts getting heated and starts rising up around because the surrounding air is colder relatively to that air bubble, and it starts rising up. And the temperature lapse rate is a DALR, that is a dry adiabatic lapse rate in the bubble, and it continues rising up. So that is the funda. That's the reason you can have a thermal in the Antarctic also. It is basically relative heating of an air mass. It can happen anywhere.
Okay, I think pretty spot on. Explained very well. So basically, parcels of rising air in an unstable environment. Stable meaning there's no vertical movement. Unstable meaning there is vertical movement, useful for flying. And differential heating, thermals are created and they rise. And that's what helps us, fly. Types of thermals, quickly. It can be bubbles, it can be a pulsating thermal, it can be a rising column being constantly fed. So that's the kind of types of thermals we are talking about. I hope everyone knows what's a core. So as we saw in the film as well, that there's a central part which is going at a faster rate, and there's a bit of turbulence around it, and then there's the descending kind of area. So we just want to familiarize ourselves with these terms. So we're clear with core that thermal can have one, generally two cores, or maybe even multiple cores inside the thermal. Okay. Thermal sources and triggers. Can anybody explain quickly? Thermal sources.
Any ground which heats up faster than the other side of ground, especially triangles of when the two parts of the hill meet, or if there is a tin shed roof of a little village or a town that heats up faster, that'll be a trigger. A bald patch of stone which will heat faster than a mud or a grass, that will be a trigger. So anything that heats up faster with the sun and heats the air around it, so that the warm air can then have enough energy for it to rise, would be a thermal trigger.
Okay, absolutely. So there'll be different thermal sources to look at when you're doing flatline flying. Different kind of thermal sources when you're doing mountain flying. People are writing some answers in the chat. Perfectly correct. Black patches and dry ground, etc. Plowed fields. So in the mountains, we know spines are a good source. Then gullies can have a stream of air that can also give us some dynamic lift. In flatlands, darker patches clearly become thermal sources. So there's enough material, but basically we understand what we mean when we say thermal sources and triggers. Spurs will clearly, and shoulders of mountains will also be like trigger points in the mountains. Thermal indicators, we're all kind of familiar with it. Just wanted to touch base upon this as well. First and foremost, okay, other gliders, then birds, then clouds. And I have been, in thermals in Panchgani where there's a plastic bag coming up, at 10,000, 12,000 feet. Even pieces of hay and small stuff that gets picked up, and is going in the air. So, and if you're flying, looking around, you'll see these little things going up, and they can be kind of good indicators. Clouds are a lovely indicator of thermals. That's where the thermal has kind of become visible. And you can also know from the shape and the size of the cloud as to exactly what kind of thermal is below it. And you also get to know what is the stage of the thermal. It's still forming, kind of died, or it's kind of come to its end. want to familiarize you with blue thermals. I think most of you may know blue thermals. Basically, there are no clouds to indicate. And on such a day, we call the thermals blue thermals. Yes,
Okay.
Saj.
Yeah. So just have a little point to say on this blue thermal. So if you see a QT chart, it will be pretty apparent if that day will be a blue thermal day is when the ELR after cloud formation goes along the SALR line, but stays on the left of it.
Yes.
So that's when you'll be a blue day. So it'll be a good indication for people to check for blue thermal.
Yeah, from the QT and the sounding, you'll be able to make out when it doesn't touch. That means like it'll be blue. Okay, so any questions before we move to our topic of thermaling? You can remove the slide. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's good to have a look at this. This is what you see in the diagrams. In theory, we generally, make perfect circles like this and make the core. We've shaded it differently to indicate the strength. It's generally like this. But the reality is different, which is the wind will always be there generally, and it will change the shape of your thermal and also the location and distribution of lift inside the thermal. So it's good to keep this in mind and be aware of it. Okay. So before we go into techniques, can we remove the slide and, if any questions so far, are we okay on, the premise? So far, it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine. So we'll go back to the slide. So thermaling techniques. So, there are many techniques, and ultimately every pilot kind of develops their own technique. I would like to say that, at the very start. So just to be very clear, what is our objective, what is our aim, is to position a glider in such a way that we are centered in the core of the thermal and we are getting the optimum and the maximum lift from that thermal. So this is kind of, our aim and objective to go, for whatever technique that we may need to develop. So this is, our recommendation that, we took like years and years, to master thermaling, but it needn't take like so much time if you know how to go about, learning. So just to, shorten the time taken to achieve a good, success rate to acquire this skill and to have a really healthy kind of a learning curve, we seriously and strongly, I would recommend, to go step by step in your progress, which means like it doesn't make sense to learn to run if you don't know how to walk, and it doesn't make sense you're trying to walk when you don't know how to crawl. So this is the pyramid that Bruce was talking about, and that's what we recommend also, that you need to have like solid foundation. The building blocks of your skill need to be like really strong, so that you progress and there are no holes in your technique, and you don't get get caught later on by just because a few things have been missed and you don't have the best technique. So go step by step and do not miss any step, and make sure that the previous step is nice and solid before you take the next step. Just to give an example, what I mean is you don't know how to stay in the thermal yet, but you are trying to core it, and you may fall out of the thermal. And this may keep happening for a long time. So maybe, you first need to learn how to stay in a thermal before you start to, core a thermal. So this is what I mean by, step-by-step program. And that is why I like to talk about that before, I start to, think of honing my thermaling skills, what are the previous steps that need to be in place before I get there. So that is why, we talk about the pre-thermaling skills. So um, these are basics, but basics do not mean easy. Okay. Do not confuse basic with easy. These are solid skills and they need time and hard work to attain. So in pre-thermaling requirements, first thing I would say would be ground handling skills. And ground handling skills to a level of unconscious competence. So, we talk about this, 4 steps in the school. I think everyone is familiar with this. We'll just, bring you to a slide which talks about these, 4 steps of development. I'll just explain them just to be clear. Unconscious incompetence is like, when we don't know what we don't know. But we start with conscious incompetence when I'm aware that I don't have a particular skill. I'm not really good at it. Just in case of ground handling, like, I can touch my wingtip on the left, I can touch it to the right. Or for example, I can read really good, well about, coring a thermal. In the theory, it's very clear in my mind, but actually when I get there, I don't even remember what I read about, So conscious incompetence is being aware of exactly what you know, the skills that you have. And then through practice, you bring it to your competence level. You become good with these skills. That active piloting, for example, that I can, okay, glider is moving forward, I apply brakes, and I stop the movement. So I'm consciously making this action, and I'm good with it because I'm conscious, aware, and I know exactly how much, at what time I should apply, how much should apply. I'm aware. And the last step, which we will be talking a lot about, is that this has become so tuned, this has become kind of a muscle memory for me, that my glider is going forward. I'm not even thinking about it, but I'm applying the brakes, it stops, I release, and my mind is totally free, thinking of totally something else. So this has become an unconscious competence for me, or this skill I'm able to do unconsciously. So when I have something, when we go into talking about, mapping the thermal and, coring the thermal, we need to be, having a certain skill sets before our mind can be free to get a grasp of these concepts and these skills. So we like you to be aware of, these steps that we keep talking about. So yeah, going back, like, first pre-thermaling requirement, I would say good, solid ground handling skills where you can really play with your glider. You've gone to the 6 stages of, ground handling, and you brought them to the unconscious competence level where you can really play with the glider, and without even thinking, your hands know what inputs to give. Your body also knows how to move, and better you're at with ground handling, easier you will find, the future steps. So, that's first. Second, to be able to do 360s at different bang angles. So, you'll be needed to do, turns from 35 to 60 degrees in thermaling, which will be ranging between 12 to 16 seconds mostly. And you need to be really good with these 360-degree turns and at varying bank angles and maintaining your speed. So practice a lot of 360-degree turns at varying bank angles and in both directions. If you find yourself, if you see your, flight on a duorama and you see more than 50%, you are always turning right, you better work on, on your left hand, because your right is going dominant. So it shouldn't matter to you, you shouldn't need to prefer that, okay, I rather turn right. You should be equally good in both the directions. So practice 360s at varying bank angles in both directions. So this would be second. Third, again, active piloting. Now this, you need to have a good understanding, of the energy and the feel of the glider. And you should have cracked active piloting and brought it to the unconscious competence level, where you're not needing to think, what to do. So things like basic SIV and practicing on your own, pitch control, roll control, and dabbling in basic thermals, and really becoming good with your active piloting. Because once we go ahead and start talking about the tumbling technique, you will realize how important a skill that you need to have in your pocket before you can progress further. Pitch and roll control, like I mentioned, are really, really essential, because in strong turbulent thermals, you will have sometimes really strong pitching happening. And sometimes it dives so much when you're spat out of a thermal that you need maybe 80% of your brakes to catch it in time, release it in time, and you're kind of okay. So again, really good practice with the pitching, how to stop pitching, understanding the energy of the glider, and again in roll, initiating the roll by yourself, and then using your body and the brakes to stop that roll, to really understand the energy of the glider and start to become kind of responding directly to your glider. Of course, I have to mention collapses. You need to be good with the collapses, because you can get them while thermaling. So it is a pre-thermaling requirement. You should have practice in your basic or advanced SIV and become good enough, that you can handle it. And the last one is like the golden rule, that there should be some smoothness in your flying and some finesse in your flying. So the 360s that you practice should be really smooth, where you're not falling in and out of the turn. There should be smooth, coordinated turns that we teach you in your 10-day, 20-day courses. Coordinated turns, because this skill will be really demanded when you start to thermal. So yeah, the last point in pre-thermaling skills, the golden rule is smoothness in your flying. So yeah, so that's kind of about it for pre-thermaling skills that we need. I like to open the house, if you have any questions regarding what we've just talked, and I get a little break as well. So yeah.
So Avi, a question really, where would I practice this? Because if I just do 360 in a calm air, do you think it's going to teach me the skill that are required to keep the constant smooth 360 in thermal?
Like when you finish your 20-day course, you start to fly, in a little bit of unstable air in Kamshet as a club pilot before you actually start, going into thermaling courses and all. So yes, I mean, you will get enough opportunities to start to go in a little bit of unstable air and practice these, turns and how smooth, you can be. You will know yourself also. So yeah, I mean, you do get opportunities to practice this and practice with varying bank angles. Okay, more tight, okay, less bank angle, changing the angle maybe inside the turn also, learning bit of opening and closing of the turns, and then, doing it, in both the directions, maybe also starting to be aware of looking at the terrain as well, like, okay, let me open the turn in a particular axis. So that will go a long way, in the future when we, start to thermal. Okay. So, okay, thermaling technique. So, yeah, I mean, like you may have read, if you ask like, 10 pilots, what is your thermaling technique? What is your, secret thermaling technique? You will hear 10 techniques from 10 different pilots. So you have to practice, you have to try, you have to experiment, and you have to develop your own thermaling technique. Okay. We can talk about some techniques that usually you see on websites or YouTube videos, or the masters explaining that just do this and you got it. So we can discuss them, and we can discuss pros and cons, and you will have to figure out for yourself and develop your own thermaling technique. There is no fixed thermaling technique. Okay. And every pilot develops their own kind of technique, but there are some kind of basic rules which you read about and which we can talk about. So so now we start the thermaling aspect. They say, like, when you enter a thermal, you count to 4 and keep going. If you are in the lift, you turn. If you're in sync, you open the turn. So this is one technique that is going around. So, okay, when you have lift, you turn. So what they're saying is that when you hit lift, or when you're in a core, you start the turn. But when you hit the sync, then you roll out, because you want to now kind of search where the core is. The second technique, it's totally opposite. They say when you have lift, you fly straight, which means that in maximum lift, the best lift you'll get when the glider is straight and level. Okay, so they want you to like open the turn when there is strong lift, and then when there is sync, they want you to turn. So, I mean, in different situations, both the techniques will work. What usually works is, if you're beginning, let us say you enter a thermal and you want to wait for 3 to 4 seconds. That's what you'll read everywhere. 3 to 4 seconds, and you begin your turn. Which side you turn can be any side, but if you have a lifty wing on one side, you generally turn that side. Okay. Now, common mistakes: turning too early or turning too late when you're already out of the thermal. So optimally, 3 to 4 seconds work, because that will give you maybe a 12 to 14 second or 16 second kind of a radius of circumference, which is quite optimum. So 4 seconds, start a turn and do a 16-second turn that you practice. You do a full 360. Now, if the whole circle is in the lift, it is actually good enough already. Okay. And you just continue with that. If part of your thermal is in sync and part of your thermal is in lift, now you want to shift your circle towards the lifty side. Okay. So what you do is that when you come to the portion, this is, I'm talking about the quadrant technique, which Kelly talks about in his books. So if you've done a circle and you divide the circle in the half, and you know which side of the circle was lifty, as you come to that side, you open the turn for a second or max 2 and close the turn again, which means that the circle, which was divided into half, one half was lift, one half was not so much lift. by opening and closing the turn, you have shifted the circle towards stronger lift. So in the next 360, now I'm gonna go very slow now. Now in the thermal, the smoothest part is the core, okay? We will not hit the core directly unless, we're lucky, or we can sense it and we go directly to the core. It's the smoothest part of the thermal, okay? Because it's nice and strong and there is no shear. Outside in the orange and the pinkish area, there is more turbulence. You will need to give inputs to your glider to keep it nice and smooth, okay? And now you should be able to do that unconsciously. Only then your mind is free to feel which part of my circle is lifty and which part of my circle is non-lifty. If my glider is diving and and very consciously I'm applying brakes and releasing, I may not have the mind space to focus on which part of my circle is lifting. Okay, so that is why we talked about this earlier, that active piloting, smooth flying should be your unconscious competence skill, so that your mind is free to feel. Of course, there are instruments which will also tell me, like beep, 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 and beep, beep, beep. This will also tell me. But especially in the beginning, we want to focus on the feel first, because feel has a lot of advantages. And instruments we use just to confirm what my feeling is saying. Okay. Now, there is a lag in the instruments. Okay. Especially we'll go back now. We're entering the thermal and the beep, beep, beep starts. Now it is already late. You will feel the surge as you enter the thermal. I think most of you may have experienced that you enter a mass of air, the glider starts to lift, but the beep hasn't come yet. Okay. So it is very easy in the beginning that you enter the thermal, you hear the beeps, and you say, okay, yeah, I think I should turn now. And by the time you turn, you have actually crossed the thermal. Because in 4 or 5 seconds, you may have gone like easily 30 meters. Okay. So we want to rely on the feel. So you feel it and your count should start. Okay. I mean, they talk about 4 elephants: elephant 1, elephant 2, elephant 3, elephant 4, and pang, you start your turn. Do not totally rely on the instrument because it can delay you. Okay. So feel first and confirm that with your instrument. So I've entered the thermal, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I begin my turn to either side. It doesn't matter. Okay. But if I feel that the more pressure on the right side, or the lift is, or the wing is lifting on the right side, I turn right. That is obvious which way to go because I feel stronger lift, or I sense a stronger lift. This we are talking, nobody else is in the air, nobody else is in the thermal. We are by ourselves. So I start a turn. Now I just do a nice 16-second optimum 360, which I have practiced, nice and smooth. And after the 360, now I will know which part of my circle has lift. Okay, this is a precious information. You can also take help of ground features that, okay, towards the sun was the lifty part, or towards the mountain was the lifty part. Okay, so this can give you an idea. Okay, this is the lifty part. And then you open your turn for a second or two and then close again. And you are then slowly shifting your circle towards the lifty side. Okay, so this is I'm talking about how to go towards the stronger lift inside the thermal. But before that, I need to you don't need to like search for thermals in the beginning because they'll be obvious. There'll be house thermals right in front, so you don't need to search for thermals. We just need to stay in the thermal. I think that could be the first objective, how to just stay in. So if you get inside and you start a turn, if your whole circle is t t t t t t t, very nice. Just stick with that, and maybe do 2 or 3, and then maybe think किधर lift ज़्यादा था. Or if you did the first circle and one part was sinky, okay, still good enough. I can do one more. I'm just beginning. I can do one more. And now I'm sure this side was lifty. I open the turn for a second or two and turn again, and now see where I am. So we go really slowly like this. Okay. And like I mentioned before, it is hard work. It is concentration. It will be frustrating also in the beginning. Like we have students, they try and they go around and land and they're super frustrated. And I'm saying, damn good you're frustrated, because now you will not leave it. You'll be super sensitive and you don't want to land and you want to catch it somehow. That frustration energy, we ask students to use and latch on to that lift, and then you start getting the hang of it. It takes years. It takes a lot of practice, lot of hard work, lot of frustration. But once you start to get it, once you start to like, whoa, all of you tasted that. Your instructors in the tumbling courses guide you. You stay inside and you go like, wow. And to then, it's up to you to develop your technique, to make sure you go step by step and get better and develop it. Because what happens is 80% competency is easy to reach. Okay, because there are steps, there are guidances, there are instructors to teach you. But from 80, the last 20% will take rest of the lifetime, because a lot of hard work, a lot of research will give you very incremental kind of gains. All the people who've been thermaling and cross-country flying for last 5 years, 10 years, you will know that the last 20% takes forever. There is no like somebody, even the top pilot who's best in thermaling in the world, is looking to get better at it. And that is why like we keep flying, because it can never get boring, because you never get good enough, or never become like really like it starts to bore you or something. It's always exciting. So yeah, I mean, I can keep going on. I'm feeling a bit lonely, so talking. So we want to answer your questions, like where you are, because every pilot is at different level, and something clicks, something doesn't click, something I want to clarify. We'd rather like to work on that. So ask questions. So then it becomes really, really interesting. Different people will be at different levels. So make use of this forum now to clarify where you are and what you want and where you want to go. Okay, I think Pratik is there already with a question.
Yeah. So Avi, I think in the start when you were talking about thermal techniques, you mentioned about the two techniques wherein you close your turn when you're in the lift and you open the turn when in sync, and the other technique was the opposite, wherein you are opening your turn in lift and closing it while in sync. But I think towards the second part of your explanation, you always mention that whenever you want to make sure that you're mostly in the lift of your 360 circles, whenever you feel like you're in lift, you open it for 1 or 2 seconds and then start closing it. That way you will come more towards the core of the thermal. So I think the second technique of opening in lift and closing in sync is more dominant here.
Yeah, because the first two work in different situations. The third one that I talked about, which is mapping it by in the beginning I did the circle and I just divided into two halves. Okay, which 180 was lifty and which 180 was sinky. I just want to go step by step. So I did a 360. Okay, not very clear, but the video was beeping. It's okay because I was busy, managing my glider. Okay, I do one more. And now I know, okay, that, okay, this part towards the mountain was lifty and away from the mountain was sinky. So I've got a map now in my head that, okay, the lift is that side on this side of my circle. So now when I do a full 360 again and I approach this side, I just open the turn for a second or two and then close again. And
I'm
then
eating.
the circle from here, if I'm the mountain, the circle was here and I shifted the circle here, closer, because that's, and now I realize that, oh, most part of my circle was in lift, but stronger lift was still on the same side only. Okay, I do the same thing again and I shift again.
Got it.
Fine. Yeah.
Avi, I want to share two of my learnings, if you don't mind. Or am I
Yeah.
okay? Okay, so I think one of the things, if you remember, we were in beer and I was unable to understand the beer long back in the house thermal. And you came on the radio. I don't know if you remember this, but I was in the house thermal and I was unable to hook onto a thermal. And you told me, Sajid, you just passed the thermal, and I didn't even know it, right? And then he said, "Nahi, tere piche hai, come back, come behind and take the thermal." So you made me close my turn and come back a little bit, and I had passed it. I didn't even feel it. And I went to cloud base that day. That was my first time to cloud base, and over the house thermal, and that got me thinking that, like with kiting, if you remember, we had discussed this. I had said that I figured kiting when I was struggling initially. Uh, Initially, when I came for P2, I was struggling with kiting, and what really clicked for me in kiting is that your glider reacts after a second or two. So wait for it. That really hit me in kiting. The same thing I felt was with thermaling is you sometimes pass and then you react. Like you said, you wait for another 2 seconds, you are gone ahead a lot of distance. For me, that was a learning. But more than that was what's the shape of the thermal that was shared in reality when it hit me, that it's not really round, because that's what's in your mind. You're putting theory to practice, and when you realize, especially in Kamshed, where we do most of our flying, that it is not round, it's more like an amoeba shape, and you got to figure out you could go into a lift and come out of lift and go back into lift because of the shape. and
Yes.
and to find the core, keep on finding the core, that really changed my thermaling. So techniques you're talking about are, for me, three different kinds of techniques for me that I use. One is calm shade, when I know that I need to go elliptical. Whenever I open my turn, when my glider pitches up because of the headwind of calm shade, I wait and then I turn. And when the turn is very fast behind, I need to like really come back to stabilize it again. That Panchgani is different. It's a little rolly and pitchy, and beer is completely different. So I adapt in different places. But also, what's important is your wing. What I've realized is now I fly Rook 2, which Rohit used to fly, and I used to fly Epsilon before. In Epsilon, I could hook my glider in a turn, and I know that it will go along the variance of the gradients of the wind, because it's that kind of a glider. Like, I can hook and keep a little bit of outside pressure, more of inside pressure, get into a bank, and I know when to release this a little bit. Just keep on playing with it and think. But I had to de-learn a little bit with Rook 2, where if you touch the outside brake, it is not very efficient. You got to let go of the outside brake. You just have to link with the outside brake, and then do the same thing. But just by linking, it becomes more efficient. Aquila, for that matter, if END, and it's because it's freestyle and acro, it's more shorter in length and more pitchy. So although it says in the manual that it is a good thermaling this glider, but it is damn pitchy, and especially as the strength of the thermal goes, it goes like seriously very active flying. Like, really have to keep on doing this. So that's another thing I feel we can talk about is depends on your glider also, and you got to
Oh,
understand how
yes.
your glider behaves in what kind of air and what kind of input you need to make it more efficient.
Oh, very much a big factor. What Sajid is saying, like you need to adapt to the glider also. Some gliders, uh, like to climb with, high speed. They climb the best when you give them speed. Some gliders, when you have some pressure, they climb more fast that way. So you'll need to understand your glider, where's the sweet spot, or how does your glider behave in thermals, and you adapt to that. So that is a factor in your thermaling. You'll know how to play with your particular glider. So yes, very, very much. You will come to know this when when you've been thermaling for a while and you change the glider and you say, oh, okay, this one requires different kind of inputs. So yes, very much a factor. It will change with the glider. Another point that you brought about exiting. So what do? We exit. The moment you exit the thermal, maybe straight on, or you were trying, you exited, the 270-degree rule applies. You get out, you turn, and whichever side you feel, that side you do the last 90. So it is full 180, and then if it was this side, you do another 90, and you are entering again. So thermal exit, apply the 270 rule. That is generally what we do. Or you can, if you've gone too far, then you do 180 and extend the leg before you do another turn. So that is what you do if you exit out of the thermal.
Hey, Avi.
Hi.
Are you going to cover about the winds? Because I just wanted to have a quick comment on that.
Yeah, we just talk about thermaling, and we go to the wind part next.
Okay.
So
because the reason I just wanted to bring it to notice is we all have learned this theory together, and still it gets very confusing when you try to put it all in practice in Kamshed or in Panchgani, because there's a lot of wind factors. You will cover more in detail, so I won't go in there. But what I wanted to tell you is these two techniques, whichever you practice, you will often doubt yourself whether you're not doing it right or the conditions are that. And that's the biggest catch-22. Because I'm pretty sure everyone, like 30 people on this call, everyone has learned these theories one way or the other. Okay. But still, it's difficult to put them in a practice because every site, situation, conditions are different. And this doesn't work always the same. Sajid has already talked about he adapts his thermaling style in Beer and Kamshed and Panchgani differently. So I'll let you cover that aspect of it. But all I wanted to say is before you take a decision whether you get it or not, you have to try to hone your skill on a simple site where it reduces the number of variables in the equation. If you go to a simple site, then all you have is a simple thermal, large thermal, thermic without a wind effect. You can hone your basic thermaling skill, and then you start adding up the other factors. Okay, so I'll let you continue now. I do not want to take part of your session there.
No. It's not like I would rather have inputs coming in and questions being asked. So Beer is a very different, and I would say like easiest among all three. Where it's the easiest and the best place to start your thermaling because it's not windy there.
Correct.
So you will get a sense of the thermals. You can stay in the thermals longer, and the understanding will develop.
Yeah.
And some kind of technique will develop. The things that we are talking, you can actually apply them in Beer.
Exactly.
But you'll not be able to apply them in Kamshed.
Yeah.
And you may be able to apply a little bit in Panchgani because Panchgani is like windy and not windy. Kamshed is windy. But if you get a day, in Kamshed where it's not windy, that's your day. Like sometimes in December, Jan, we get beautiful, less windy days, in Kamshed, where you can apply these techniques and really, start to make sense out of them. Panchgani, again, in Jan, Feb is good. And Beer is like top notch, like best place to start in the month of October. So,
Avi?
yeah, just a moment. So like I said, like you go with an idea and you go and like, it's kind of, like Rohit said, like it's so rough, like you forget the circle and forget the lift. You're busy managing your wing only, and you go for landing. What the fuck? Like there will be moments like this. You're a sportsman, and it will take time. So you have a concept ready. You got your, tools of skills done, And now you go there and you play. And you play like you do any sport, like football or basketball. You're just trying, stuff. And you just try and see what works. Do a nice analysis after landing. Talk to somebody, and then build on that, and then build on that. And you develop, your own technique. It has to start to make sense to you slowly. And again, now, technology is improved so much. I mean, we can, just see what we did. You connect your, information to Duorama and see exactly what you did, what you were thinking, papa, and maybe there was another glider. You can, match up 2-3 flights, at exactly this time. Look, I was here, and I was climbing, and you were going down. So, okay, oh, I didn't even look there. So use technology and use analysis to really, make your learning curve faster. I mean, we've taken like 10 years, to reach somewhere, but you can do that in a year. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just have a look. Look, there are 2 pilots, Sach and Joyce, one of our courses in Beer, and you can see exactly what's happening. And when you're watching, I mean, this is Joe, and Sach was, I think, guiding him, and they were flying together, and you can see, you can recall, okay, this is what I thought here. Okay, I thought this, and that's why, this happened. So things will become more clear like this. What are these guys doing? Okay, finally they have a thumb.
Finally got it.
They're like holding hands and
looks like 2 sperms competing with each other.
So this can kind of reduce a lot of frustration. A good analysis that can give you some clarity of what happened, and then what kind of changes to make next. Okay.
Avi, I would also like to add from my experience here that the theory can get overwhelming, and when you're actually trying to execute what you learned in theory in your thermaling course or in your initial thermaling flights, things they can't really work exactly as you have learned in theory. So the idea is to rather understand the theory, but after the flight, the debrief actually helps you to connect your theory and what you have done, rather than in flight try to count the turns, unless it's a top-down flight and you're actually doing the exercises of 16-second turn and 12-second turn. That is real value. But while doing thermaling, it can become overwhelming. And that is, I'm sure, Ritu, Ashutosh, Jaydit, a lot of pilots who recently have done thermaling courses can relate to what I'm saying. Guys, please come in if you want to add something here.
You can share your experience. I would say, don't go into this theory or too much. I would say, do the practical first, try things, and then read. Then it will make sense to you. Not like read first, and then try to make sense out of it while you go there. Do just the opposite. You first, try stuff, basic, very little, just play around, try, and then read, because then when you read, you are relating to something. If you're reading and reading, you're only imagining with no concrete reality to compare with. Okay, but if you do stuff, and then read, you have something real and concrete to compare with, and then it will make sense for you to yourself, not otherwise. Because I mean, I would say it can get very interesting and exciting to keep reading and form these amazing concepts, and it's so super clear to me. When you go there, oh my god, it's a big mess. You will experience this.
Well, Sajid and me are smiling and laughing our asses because it's such a different personality types. Now, just would like to say that Avi's right, but Avi's also certain personality type. Okay, so take his advice with association with the personality type. So there are some guys like me who will read a lot, but really the essence of it is no matter how much you read, unless you try it out, And unless you combine that with the real experiences, you can't learn more. There is not infinite learning through the videos and books and stuff, and then you think that you got it. No, it has to be combined with a continuous trying it out, and that's how you learn. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that you shouldn't read. Why not?
I think you should first try it, then come back and read and see what went wrong.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, we continue. Sorry.
No, it's good. Guys, you want to clarify some aspect? Yes, Shabbat, go for it.
With regards to technique, not sometimes, depending on the condition of the air, and I had this in beer, so I'm asking again. In the 360, because you're trying to keep it clean, sometimes you find that the glider is resisting the turn or throwing you out. And it's not just in one axis. You sometimes feel that you're being, it's a plunge, either backward or forward. So A, mitigation of that, and B, when it happens, how do you get back quickly into, because there's traffic and you're trying to stay you've just started to get lift and it's just starting to work. And then you find yourself that, the glider is just is fighting the turn. So is there a mitigation technique, and once it happens, how do you get back in quickly?
So, imagine the fountain is there. Okay. It's like this, and it's going like this. Okay. And there'll be moments where you're on the edge of a core or something. Okay. On the edge of the core, you'll have a side slip like this, side slip, and a sink like this. So one knows, okay, something, maybe is, kind of pushing me away, kind of a sensation.
Yeah.
So a good thing is to do the opposite. So you're thrown away, you get some energy. Now use this energy to hook in a turn and enter. Sometimes it can be hard, it's like you're hitting a wall. And then, sometimes we have to actually swing and, break that wall to get in. Sometimes it's like a strongish column. And you need to do kind of a wing over to get that speed to penetrate and get inside. So it could be that. It could be that the core is throwing you, or it could be that, you are in a core or in a good lift, and there's another core on the side, which kind of pushes you away like this. So that is also indication of something better kind of working here. So you're in lift anyway, you continue and then open towards it and climb. Okay, rather than reversing the turn here, it's good that you're not sinking anyway, but you have lesser lift, but something stronger has come up. So maybe you're in even a core, another core is kind of distorting this one and giving you a funny sensation of getting thrown to one side.
Maybe Shabad, a full-on weight shift on this side will get you inclined that side, and then a little bit of brake will help you get in, like what Avi is saying.
Let's say you're already in say any direction, so your weight is already in place. Now what happens is, just because of the energy, it's not working. It's despite all of this, you feel yourself that it's almost vertical in front of you. It's no longer in a bank. It's come out of the wing has come out of the turn, and it's right on top of you. But whatever you do, you can. But what's happened is that you moved away from your orbit or from your circle. And so that's why I want to know that once that happens, what is a good way to get back in quickly? Because at my stage, you tend to lose reference. I look at ground features as well to know where it is. I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
No, that's a good thing to do. One is ground features. So, there's sunset or there's a mountain or something that is telling you, this way it is, lifty side. Your instruments is another thing that will tell you, which is the lifty side. So there's more information there. Other gliders are also telling you, what is happening inside the thermal, especially in the beginning. It'll help you a lot. So I need to know where I want to go. If I know that, then all I need is some energy in my glider. If it is stuck, I want to speed up, get some energy, and then use that energy to preferably continue the turn, because I don't want to do a reversal because there's more loss in that. Unless I'm like cocksure, like super sure that yes, it is worth it hooking a reversal, because it's so clear that there is solid lift there. Then I can do that and then hook in on that side. Right? So if you know where I want to go, you will know what you want to do. And to know what you want to do, you need to have energy. So speed up and see where you want to go.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Avi,
Yeah.
so when most of the time I get confused when I get a solid lift all of a sudden. So
Yeah.
I get confused whether that was a core or that was like, should I be coming back there, or like it's a confusing moment for me at that particular time. So I don't know how to what to decide at that particular time.
So I'm either I'm flying straight or I'm in a turn, right? So if I'm flying straight and I hit strong lift, it is good news. You should first of all feel wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Feel wow because something is coming to lift you.
I think that wow carries on for a long time and then I lose it.
Lose it. Okay. So now you want to ease up on the brakes, because when you hit a lift, the glider kind of pitches back. Your angle of attack is increasing and you want some energy. You ease up on the brakes if you have any. And then see how long it is going on. So if it is like, maybe if I just say 1001, 1002, 1003, start the turn. Okay, you don't have to wait, because what can happen is that if you wait too long, this is a common mistake. We wait too long and then we're already in the sink. Now we have to turn in the sink maybe to get back. So if you have had 3 seconds of good solid lift, it is a good idea to turn, because the turn will most probably keep you in the lift. So just 3 seconds max for initiator turn.
Okay.
Now remember, you are safer in a turn, because first of all, your glider is faster, which also means it is stronger, which also means it is less prone to turbulence. So if you feel little unsure also, throw in a turn. You got lift, strong lift, 3 seconds, throw in a turn. Because in the turn, you'll feel more secure, more solid, less turbulence, you'll feel safer, and you will be inside also. So it should be clear to you, like 3 seconds, wow, that's what I want, I put in a turn. And then stay in the turn. Now, you will find that inside this strong lift, there's less turbulence. It is much smoother in the core than on the outside. So you're relatively more relaxed to be able to sense which way to shift my circle if I have to, or in the beginning, I'm happy with this, let me stay with this. Let me see how long it takes me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Avi, Faisal wanted to add something.
Oh,
Faisal.
sorry, I forgot. Sorry, Faisal, go for it.
It's okay. It was related to beer, because I remember I spent a week where it was just on the house thermal and another thermal in front of it. And my exercise was just to go all the way to the top and then out, lose 500-600 meters and then come back again. And that was the game, because the first 2 days were really frustrating. So that was my goal, and it was really enjoyable after that.
This is what we usually do, in our thermaling courses. Once you start getting the hang of it, first of all, practice being as smooth as possible. Second aim is to stay inside the thermal. I don't want to core and all. I just want to stay inside. We'll come to the slide little later, Sach. So my first aim is to be as smooth as possible. Okay. My second aim is to just stay in the thermal. I'm not so interested in coring. I want to stay in the thermal. If I ask around, question to everybody, are you able to stay in a thermal? Or do you lose 50% of the thermals? So where are you exactly? People who are flying for 5-10 years and good cross-country pilots, you'll be surprised to know that they lose 50% of the thermals. But you can hone your skills to reach a level where you only lose 10% of the thermals that you encounter. And this will come with honing your thermaling skills, taking it step by step. First, smoothness, cleanliness in the turns. Second, solid active piloting, which will bring cleanliness in the turns. Third, staying in the thermal. See if you can just stay in the thermal and just sense it. Sense the extra lift somewhere, less lift somewhere, turbulence somewhere, nice, as smooth as possible. There will be surges, there'll be spikes, there'll be sink pockets, and you have to manage your glider. You have to learn that. It is in the thermal that you'll develop your unconscious competence of being able to fly in a thermal actively. So first step is just practice staying in. Forget coring, forget centering, forget making small adjustments to stay in the core, etc. Like I said, go step by step. First, smoothness in your turns, cleanliness of the turns, coordinated turns, and then ability to stay in the thermal. You reached on the top, we ask students to come out, lose height, practice a descent maneuver, relax, and 200-300 feet above, enter again, and see if you can stay in the thermal right till the top. Nice. Get out, float around, relax, float around, relax, enter it again. Bum, 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 again. You're doing several things like this. You're improving your active piloting skills and smoothness. You're able to start to map the thermal because you're able to stay inside. You'll know when you're out, you get inside. You are bringing active piloting and thermaling into your comfort zone. Your mapping is starting to form. Then once you get on top, you just relax. You're increasing your stamina. You're getting time to relax. Because when you're thermaling, you're concentrating and a lot of energy goes. Only when you land, if you're not aware, when you land after 1 hour flight, oh my God, I'm exhausted. You must have experienced this and be like, you go home, you lie down, oh shit, now I feel I'm really tired. So just to increase your stamina, which is, not very difficult to do, you go up, you come out, you just float. You just look around, you float in the valley, you got a lot of height, you lose height. Okay, ready, enter again. And just with the objective of flying smoothly, an objective of just staying in the thermal. Not centering, not coring, just staying in. Just learning to stay in. Just learning to stay in. Your mapping is developing as well. So a lot of advantages just with this one exercise. And once you're able to stay in the thermals and you're becoming confident and competent, and you begin to map, now we move towards centering in the thermal. And then we talk about, maybe in the next section about centering in the thermal or making adjustments inside to keep centering. Fine. Okay. More questions? Then I'd like to mention, it should be very clear to you that you want to focus on the feel. So when you enter a thermal, you'll feel the surge. And this can be felt. But once you're established, you will not feel that you're going up. Okay? So you need to check with your instruments. When you get out of the thermal, again, you will feel the sink. So first priority, feeling. And second, confirmation with the instrument. Okay? Now, you are listening to the beeping, so no need to pay attention anywhere else. But there's a thermal tracker in GPSs, and you can see which part of your circle is stronger, which part is weaker. And by feel, you can know, and then you can confirm with your instrument. But you need to be really careful. And I must caution that if you start to develop a habit of looking into your instrument, there are other pilots flying, and they might just be doing the same thing. and you increase the chances of mid-air collisions. So keep instruments as secondary and focus on your field, because you need to keep a sharp lookout around you for the gliders. Especially in tumbling, there are a lot of pilots maybe, and they fly in close proximity. Not all follow rules also. So you need to be aware of this right from the start, that and just a few second look and then I should be looking around. Just to caution you about looking into the instruments and making them as a secondary support, a confirmation thing, that if what I'm feeling is right or not. And remember also that there's delay. Now, just another point that comes to my mind is when you're flying and if your glider has dived and then you were delayed in applying brakes to check the dive, and then you applied brakes late, there was some energy, and now you are climbing, and now the beeper is saying did. You cannot think that there is lift here. There's maybe sink there, because that lift is created by the dynamics of the glider, not because of the air around. So if you're not smooth in your turns, because there is turbulence, we saw how thermals are from the films we saw. You can get wrong indication if you're not flying smoothly. So to get correct information from your instruments, you need to be smooth. Otherwise, you're getting false indication. So like I said, you have to build rock solid steps. Then only you make real progress. So we were dabbling with this thermaling story, reading here and there and picking up tips here and there. And I must thank Kelly. When I read his book, he gave it a language, and so much that I thought I must meet this pilot. And then Sach and me had gone and flew with him, and I think he's done a tremendous job with that book. And if you get a chance, I'm not selling for him, but I recommend that it's a good book to clear the concepts, and you'll probably read a lot of things that we are talking about here. Okay, any more questions?
I don't think any questions.
Yeah, Shabad.
For a beginner, thanks to the instructors in the school, we are shepherded into the thermal, and there's plenty of traffic already available. But just as a self-development technique, is it based on where you're seeing it in the air, or do you pick up features on the ground before you launch? I'm saying from where you're standing before you launch. Let's say Beer, we know where the house thermal is, but whether it's a few clicks this side or few clicks that side is based on how you're reading the air mass, or are you picking up reference points on the spine or on the features on the ground?
So when we're beginning, we're basically talking about house thermals, which are rather obvious because they're every day there. The differences come in when we factor in the wind. So if it's a weak windy day, if there's a weak wind, so somebody's asking a question. Just a moment, Shabad. Okay, so what do I mean by house thermal? So house thermal means a thermal that is close to your launch point, and it is reliable. It is mostly there. Okay, so takeoff and everybody goes to the house thermal. It's the nearest house thermal available from the takeoff. We term it as a house thermal because it's close to our launch, which is our house, maybe. Okay, it's close to base. So that's a house thermal. There can be 1 or 2 or 3 house thermals. If you are on Tower Hill, for example, there's a house thermal on the left where there's a little bit of a small mountain below. And there's one on the right of the takeoff, slightly ahead, house thermal. If you're in Beer, for example, there's one right on the left on the first ridge line. Okay, so that's the house thermal. Answering your question, Shabad, like clearly, like if it's first I see the sun. Okay, the sun is there, my first requirement. Second is the wind. Third is the landscape. Okay, so sun is there. I say wind, not much wind. It'll be easy for instructor to predict exactly. We know where the clearing is below, where the spine is, where the spines are meeting. So that is clearly the source for me. If it is windy, depending on which side the wind is, then I know which way the thermal is blowing and which way the core will be, so we can visualize that. So sun, wind, the landscape. Now wind I'm saying because when you look down you will see some valleys and some spines meeting. So if there is wind that day, then the wind will venture up these valleys. Okay, and it'll be also anabatic, it'll be warm also, and that also gives you an idea, okay, where to expect it. So the sun east side, if you remember, like in Bir, the cracks, the top pilots used to take off and go on the left side because it was the sunny side. And if you miss it, there's not much landing option. That's why the intermediate pilots never used to go there, but the advanced pilots used to go there because they know that, okay, sun is hitting there, there's not much wind, exactly on the spot they'll get it, and they used to get it. So the sun, effect of the wind, the landscape shape, 3. Fourth is other pilots. Other pilots tell us exactly what's happening in the sky. That's 4. And number 5, a cloud. So you see house thermal on top. I think you guys were there. I remember Ritu was there, and clearly about the house thermal there's a cloud, papa. So these, if these 5 factors are fulfilling, you can be sure, unless something really some other weird factor has come in. If these 5 factors are there, you can be sure of the source. We'll go into these details later. Once you start to thermal and you become adept at thermaling and become really good, same thing is happening on the next ridge. Same thing is happening on the next ridge, and on the next, and on the next. So we now start to travel. But we travel with the confidence that I go there, I can catch it. So we have practice, practice, practice. We become really good with our thermaling technique. Now, what is happening on this ridge is exactly the same thing happening on the next one. Same thing is happening on the next one. Same thing is happening on the next one. I can go with confidence. I know if I get a thermal, I know how to kind of get the sense of it. I know how to stay in. I know how to core. And yes, I'm not going to leave it. So like this. And like this, we move towards cross-country flying. Okay. Kunal, when do we know when to move out? So a lot of factors, decide when we want to move out. Number 1, if I want to go home, I've had enough. I'm thirsty. I'm not getting a water pipe. So if I've reached on top and I know, that I'm sure of, the next thermal. So you can see it like a, refueling pump. I have refueled. I've got a lot of altitude, and it's not like you finish on top and now and you're looking around, where to go. There is a way of exiting a thermal where you go through the core and towards where you have decided to go. So you're living with the maximum. So if there's a thermal and I have to go towards me, which is the next thermal, I want to exit it through the core and then leave it, rather than exit this side, lose precious altitude and then wander around and babble around and go with a lot of advantage, and then look at other guy who's in front of me really high. I say, oh my God, he was in the same thermal. Why is he so high? Why am I so low? Or because he exited properly and you were blabbering around. So I need to know where I'm going next. That's the time you decide to lose the thermal. Or you reach the top and okay, if I'm just practicing, I go out, lose height, enter again. Or I've reached the maximum and I go to the next one. I know where my next lift is coming. I exit. Have I answered, Kunal?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I think we are hour and a half already. Sach, where are we, and where are we in terms of?
So the next one was exercises and then common mistakes. So we can do that next time.
So fine, if there are no questions, we can wrap up. It's hour and a half. I think I hope we had some insights for you. We can do a quick recap on Wednesday and then continue from there, and go further and deeper in this and clarify. More clarity you have, less time you'll waste. Reading stuff and wasting time. In the sky. So it's good to clear the concepts, know the steps, and have a plan. And you'll not take like donkeys of years like we took to sharpen our tumbling skills. You can go really fast. So okay.